Roger Starkiller.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. Nice to see you.
What's your name?
Roger.
Roger, pleasure to meet you. Sure. You're very welcome.
Tomorrow is our DEI.
Okay.
So Roger's going to be on the LGBT group.
Okay.
I assume you're here to see how it goes.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the sixth meeting
Okay.
for this one.
Yeah.
We just had the first meeting with the Filipino group
Okay.
last week. It was amazing. It's too bad you had to be really amazing.
Yeah, man.
It was moving.
Okay.
And it was very reminiscent of our first meeting.
Gotcha.
I mean, her family history of persecution in the Philippines. Now she's a VC. She wanted to give back. She looked at the room and one thing. Let's change that. She's Filipino. Her fund is not specific to Filipinos. She would personally like to see what happens. The other fund was specifically Filipino. And she's the one that started it. She called me after the first summit from her.
Okay.
Yeah, because I need Filipino families. And I don't know what it's about. She moved up here for the Bay Area. Okay. All right. We're in the group. And this finally happened.
How many seats?
25. Which was, we had 24 at our first meeting.
Yeah. 24.
Okay. And again, your name was
Jamar. You're Roger, right? One second.
Yeah, he's scrambling to get ready for the we're video streaming and stuff.
TJ, I know you're sick of me. Did you move the tape or no?
Didn't move it, no.
Cool. No, I know where it's at. I know exactly where it's at.
You got your mics? No level here? They're already on.
No, it's not. Oh. This battery is going to die on you.
Cool. Okay.
Before you're done. Hey folks, we're going to grab a seat and get started. Grab some food, grab your drink, come on down. Please fill in the front row. Everybody wearing a dark shirt or jacket sits in the front row.
You don't have to tell us.
do intros? Go ahead. Yeah. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for making it out tonight. I know that there are still like 10 people on their way, so maybe we hit bad traffic or something, but we're going to get started. Anyhow, I think all of you know me, right? I don't have to introduce myself.
It's always.
I looked up TSA travelers yesterday, all-time record. There's 3 million people traveling right now. School's out, vacation. A record day in 2019 was like 1.2 million. It's 3 million, right? It's still revenge vacationing from COVID, you know. So this is our first summer. We opened August 23rd, so we have no idea what to expect in attendance at summer, but there were a lot more, and there's 4 people coming from one of the presenting companies that aren't here yet, so I assume that they're just jammed in traffic. How many of you are here for the first time? Only 3. Okay, good. All right. Oh, Roger, you've been here before. We're gonna. Just give you a lay of land here tonight. Jamar is going to do his usual fireside chat tonight with Ron Higgs. And then we got 3 companies. Jerome's going to pitch his concept for Mad Kitchen. We got AR Bell here. AR, where'd you go? Is Brittany going to be here?
Nope.
Oh, she's in Minnesota?
Minnesota right now.
Ah, okay.
Working another event, so.
Right. Husband and wife team. He's going to talk to you about Game Time Hero, and then the guys from Swivel haven't shown up. Hopefully they show up. And since we have such a small group tonight, we're actually going to be able to do new member intros. So just, get up and say a little bit about why you're here, what you're into. Let's get to know you a little bit. And I'll do a little bit on upcoming events, and it's all about the networking and enjoying food and drink and so forth. If you're not familiar with Venture Mechanics, we are a startup hub. That's about the best term we can come up for it. But we started out as a co-working facility for venture scale startups. Co-working ain't happening. People are working from home and they come in and use our conference rooms to meet as teams. And so we retooled the building. There used to be 100 co-working desks. There's 11 now. But events took off like crazy. We have 200 events on the calendar already for the year. It's absolutely insane. That happened. And then we were planning to launch an incubator at the end of the year. And then Techstars blew up. And so last Monday night, some of you were present for our incubator launch, but we actually are taking a 3rd company in now. So that's off and running. So the incubator is a huge part of our activity here, our mentor program and all of that. So if you have any questions about what we do here, want to take a tour, there's that tall guy out front, Zach. He can give you a tour. Come talk to me or talk to TJ. In terms of the all-important restrooms information, the ADA restroom is this way, and there's 4 more restrooms through there. And if you need Wi-Fi, there's the network. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Doc, Jamar Montgomery. Doc is our I'm calling you the DEI czar now. Is that okay?
Sorry.
But it was his vision that has exploded here. BFF started 6 months ago. This is our 6th meeting, and we're up to about 140 members at this point. And we just launched the Filipino group. There's a women's group launching. Roger here is going to be launching our LGBT group. Veterans group is launching. If you're a veteran, let me know. We've got Vietnamese group now, and Indigenous and Latino. So those are all.
Filipino?
The Filipino just launched last week. Yeah. Which was super cool that this is all coming together. And I got to tell you, on the flip side, that's the founders. Every VC that comes in here, I'm meeting with 2 VCs a day, and every one of them is DEI focused. I just met with Madrona today, and they told me that by next year they expect to have a DEI fund. That's the biggest fund in town, but all the little funds, all the emerging funds, they don't like to be called micro VCs. They're emerging fund managers, under 100 million. Typically, they're like 5 to 10 million. There's two a day or two a week launching here. I'm meeting with two VCs a day, but they're from all over the country. And they're specifically interested in us because of this group, which started it all, was the OG, and all the other diversity groups. I don't know if I told, yeah, I did tell you, Roger, right, about Chasing Rainbows. VC calls me from San Francisco. I hear you have a group going up there. I got to get involved, right? So it's an amazing time. This is a complete sea change. So anyhow, without further ado, how much of an intro you want?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Jamar's the most amazing guy on earth. That's all I have to tell you. Ron, you ready to come up and do the fireside chat?
Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring up Mr. Ron Higgs one more time. Let's see if your mic is working.
Testing.
All right. Go ahead and speak. We're just making sure that the mics.
No, they're working.
Testing.
Is that because of me? It might be the labs.
Carry on. Don't mind her.
Is it the labs?
It is. Yeah, they're causing that little like.
All right, hold on. It's all good then. It's all good then. We'll do it just like this. See, what happens is you have everything all set up. One day, it works fine. Look at that. Look at that. I'm going to take off of that one too, so let's see real quick. Either way, we winning. Let's go ahead and put this on you. You can put it on the inside. Either right there. Right there. Yes, sir.
Jamar, you know you're not supposed to dress nice. Yes.
You know, you know what? This was unplanned. I thought that I had another change of clothes with me when I ran out the house this morning. So this week is Boeing's inaugural AI summit. And so being that I'm surrounded by AI startups all the time, I'm interested in AI. I've been working on AI, have talked about AI. I was like, let me do it big today. One of the executive vice presidents was on campus today giving speeches. So I was like, yeah, let me show him out real quick. Pop out and show him real quick. But that is not the reason why we are here. We are here because we have an amazing, incredible gentleman to interview today by the name of Mr. Ron Higgs. Y'all don't mind me. Don't pay too much attention to me. I'm just going to be talking. All right. So, where's your mic? Oh, all right. Yeah, that took that care of all the interference. See, last time that we had the live mics with the microphones, it didn't give us no issues. Now all of a sudden today it wants to give us some issues.
Can we get Ron the other mic?
What's this thing?
That one right there is
Gotcha.
right there. See, we got some sophistication for you, Mr. Higgs.
Right.
Brought out the big guns. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Is that the real answer? Or is that the don't ask me no more answer? Okay, judging by your laugh, that's the real answer. Cool. Is anybody going to Seafair this summer?
Absolutely.
Seafair? What is it? You cannot be in venture mechanics and not see all these airplanes on the wall and not know what Seafair is. Seafair is the annual air show that is here in Seattle. What I also didn't know is that they race boats. And racing the boats is actually very, very exciting. So I felt like a little kid when I saw Seafair for the first time. I don't know about Trump, but let's see, is your mic working?
You tell me.
Oh, all right, we win. There we go. Where there's an engineer, there's a way. So let's go ahead. Mr. Ron Higgs is a distinguished professional who has served numerous prestigious organizations throughout his career, including Tectura Corporation as a senior systems engineer, L3 Technologies as a business development manager, and a sales director. He contributed his expertise to Boeing, as a flight crew, production, and flight test operations lead, and the Systems Engineering Manager for Aircraft Delivery Operations, and as the Systems Engineering Manager for the Mission Assurance and Specialty Engineering Operations Division. He presently works simultaneously as the founder and principal of Wolf Management Solutions, LLC, a business coach and sales consultant for Scale Architects, and as the fractional integrator, fractional chief operating officer, and executive coach for Wolf's Edge Integrators. He attributes his success to his mother and a deep passion for learning. Mr. Higgs has earned a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from the United States Naval Academy. He subsequently obtained a Master's of Science in Systems Engineering and Analysis from the Naval Postgraduate School, and he has garnered a certificate in Engineering Flight Test from the United States Naval Test Pilot School. Mr. Higgs has participated in numerous organizations, serving as a board member of the U.S. Naval Sea Cadets, and has earned the Defense Meritorious Service Medal by the United States Navy. Can we give it up for Mr. Ron Higgs?
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Higgs. It's not every day that we get to have Top Gun in the building. You know, it's not every day. For those of you that don't know, Top Gun is the strike fighter weapons school, but the test pilot school is where the best of the best pilots go and learn how to fly all different kinds of airplanes. So, you know, once again, you can't be adventure mechanics and not talk about aviation here, okay? Just let that be known. So, Mr. Higgs, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. When Ron called me and said, hey, could you do the keynote? I was like, well, who would want to hear about me and what I'm doing here? I'm not a founder. I haven't done this startup. Well, I've been at a couple startups, but they did not go well. Wasn't my fault, though. Anyway, so I'm really happy to be here to share my story.
Great. So let's go ahead and get into it. How did you get your start? I want to hear from the most pivotal moment that you can remember. I want you to start there, and I'm gonna guide the audience through it.
Okay. I'm about to date myself, so sorry. So one of my most vivid memories is being in my grandparents' house, and they had a console TV. Everybody know what a console color TV looked like. TV sat on the floor, you know, the, 25-inch screen or something like that, which at the time was huge, you know, and everybody gathered around the TV. It's a family event. My grandparents had 8, 9 brothers and sisters. Each of them did. And cousins and aunts and uncles and great aunts and great uncles. I mean, people were everywhere. There were just a lot of people in the house. And we're watching the TV, and I was like, what is that? Those are 2 people walking on the moon. And my grandparents, oddly enough, thought that it was all fake. All Hollywood. There's no way we put people on the moon. So I'm looking at that, and I'm like, I want to go to the moon. Right? That's one of my vivid memories of wanting to go to the moon. And since then, after that, I became a science fiction fan. You know, Captain Kirk, Star Trek, right? And all these science fiction things, right? So that's how I kind of got my interest in space, aviation, those types of things. But that's the memory that started it all.
Okay, so the memory that started it all was you seeing astronauts. And, you know, today people are doubting whether or not we landed on the moon. So, you know, I don't know if your dream was based upon a hoax or we did the actual real thing, but I'm going to go with we did the real thing. So so you went from watching TV with the family on your console TV, because that was furniture.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
I believe there was a stereo and a record player in it too. Just a big thing.
All right. So now, okay, how did you end up at the U.S. Naval Academy?
Well, there were I grew up in Camden, New Jersey. Lots of negative influences around, let's say. And I was talking to Drayton earlier, and we had some similar stories about, I can think about all the people that grew up on my street, and I think me and my brother and guy that lived across the street are the only ones that are not dead or in jail. And so a lot of negative influences around. So my mom was strong. She was not going to have me and my brother involved in any of that. And as I'm moving through high school, I'm still locked onto this, I want to go into space. I really liked airplanes. In the library, I used to go to the library, and I started looking at atlases and encyclopedias, and I would spin an atlas or a globe, pick out the country, and then get an encyclopedia and then read it. And then as I'm doing all this, I discovered all these airplanes. I started reading about all these airplanes. It's like, wow, this whole thing is flight is really cool. Then I saw a picture of an aircraft carrier, and there were planes on a ship. And I was like, they're flying planes off of a ship. That is the coolest thing that I have ever seen. I want to go do that, right? So that literally is how I got interested in it. Now, young man, Camden, New Jersey, decides that he wants to go and fly airplanes off of aircraft carriers. How do you do that? How do you find out what path is going to take me there? There was no one that could help me. No one in my family, none of the guidance counselors at school. Like, you want to do what? Right? There was no one that could help me. So I had to rely on the library system. And I have this love for the library system because the library system is where I charted out the rest of my life, right? Where I figured out Naval Academy, how people get into the Naval Academy. My mom also, she saw that I had this interest in the Navy, and there's something called the Sea Cadets, the U.S. Naval Sea Cadet course, a youth development program, sponsored by the Navy, but still youth development, teaching young folks teamwork, based on maritime services and things like that. And my mom said, hey, I found this Sea Cadets thing. I signed you and your brother up. We're going on Friday. So it wasn't a choice, but the Sea Cadets also help with this. So again, back to all of this, who could help me? I had to find a lot of people. There was no Google. Again, none of the adults in my sphere, even the ones in high school, teachers or anything, nobody had any idea. And to tell you about the time period, I actually had one of my uncles sit me down and go, what are you doing? Right? He goes, sorry about this, right? But this is really what he said to me. He goes, white man ain't never gonna let you fly his airplanes. So you better figure out something real, right? You need to settle on, your dad was a lawyer. Yeah, maybe you can go do something like that, but you'll never be able to do that. Like, okay, uncle, cool. Hey, watch me. One day left.
That's powerful. That's very powerful because what it seems like is that there was the opposition that was there in terms of a knowledge barrier. There was the opposition that came from your family, and whether you knew it or not, the opposition of the environment that you were in. And you overcame all of that. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Keep going. I want to hear. I want to touch more into that because I think that comes more into your story, and I want the audience to understand what that story and that journey, what that means for you now. So go ahead. Your uncle tells you that white man ain't gonna let you fly his airplanes, right? Did you ever do a flyby by his house or anything?
Well, we'll come full circle back to that.
All right, cool,
because
cool.
Didn't fly over his house, but I've got a great story about
All
how
right, go
that kind of
ahead. Well, that's what we're here for. Go ahead.
Well, again, never saw myself as a victim, right? I never saw anybody on the path that I wanted to take. No one that looked like me was on that path, right? You ever see any black astronauts? At the time, right? All this stuff. Even airline pilots, that type of stuff, military pilots. Well, I'm going to be the first. Don't care that nobody's there. So let's fast forward a few years. I get, luckily, with help, right? I find out, I figure all this out. I get into the Naval Academy. I actually had to go to the Naval Academy prep school first for a year, which was a blessing, actually. Then I went to the Naval Academy, did well enough there to get into flight school. Ended up in flight school as a naval flight officer. If you saw the first Top Gun, Maverick and Goose, I was Goose, guy in the back, right? The movie did not work out so well for Goose, worked out better for me, right? So, ended up flying in the first Gulf War, and
Wait. You see, wait, this is why you need a good host and moderator, because he just glossed over that, like, hold on, oh yeah, well, it didn't go good for Goose, but it went good for me. And so after that, I was at the Gulf War. Wait, hold on. Okay. What were you flying?
okay.
What were you flying? And go ahead. This is what we hear. This is not a mission briefing. This is not a mission briefing. I don't need it short and sweet. I need the story. Go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out how short or long I should make this. So I ended up flying S-3 Vikings. Viking is a carrier-based airplane that hunts submarines. They don't make movies about it because it wasn't sexy enough, right? So that's it. And all of this, it takes a while. It takes a while to go through flight school. It took me 2 years from the time I showed up at flight school to get my wings. Then I went to another training squadron to train in that specific aircraft, and it took a year. One of the things that I remember when I got my wings, there's a ceremony you finish all your flights and academics, and then there's a little bit of time before they have enough people who are ready to go before they have a graduation ceremony. So we had a graduation ceremony, got the gold wings pinned on my chest. Nobody in my family could make the trip, right? We had some other people, their families are pinning their wings on. I didn't have anybody. I just had to send the pictures to my mom. Right, but one of the guys in the squadron, who was the squadron executive officer, who, in my view, was some old guy who, ironically, is like 25 years younger than what I am now. That guy stood up to us and said, "Congratulations, you have now been accepted for further training." And that stuck with me as an epiphany, right? Because the learning never stops. Like, you got my wings, hey, this is the greatest thing in the world. I've been working for this through my entire life. I got these wings. Oh, wait, I got to go to another training squadron now? And then when I get to that squadron, there's more training to do. I got to know how to do formation. I got to learn how to do this. So, again, I should have learned that in college when I graduated from high school even, right? High school. At that point in your life, high school, I can't wait to graduate from high school. Then you get to college, start all over again. I can't wait to graduate from college. So it never ends, right? But for some reason, what that guy said stuck with me. And again, congratulations, you've now been accepted for further training. Now I'm going to fast forward to being in a squadron. This was during the time of the first Gulf War. So I did get to fly in the first Gulf War and flew a couple of combat missions. And mostly on the periphery, but did get into a situation where I got shot at, which was not pleasant. But ironically, as people will tell you, flying off of an aircraft carrier is scary. And there's one way to do it right and a lot of ways to screw it up. And we do it at night and in bad weather, things like that. So it's nerve-wracking, and I think a lot of carrier aviators will tell you landing on a carrier at night is probably the most stress-inducing things I've seen. And then even in aviation itself, sometimes I'm flying around going, man, I cannot believe I get paid to do this. This is awesome. And then it's like, holy cow, they don't pay me enough to do this crap, right? And it's in the same day, and maybe in the same flight. So I mean, naval aviation was responsible for some of the most exciting moments of my life, also the most terrifying moments of my life. So I was landed 2 airplanes that were on fire. Okay, on fire. So you gotta know what you're doing. You got to keep your head about you. And,
Okay. Doing one of the most difficult jobs in the world. Landing on one of the most difficult things that you could ever land on. Now, for those that you don't know, right? People are like, oh, it's like driving a car. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. And especially being on a ship, you not only are moving like this, you're not moving like this, you're not just moving like this, you're moving like this, you're moving like, you have 6 degrees of motion that are going on. So now what I'm hearing from you is that being in a very stressful situation, right? Having to learn how to deal with very stressful situations, how to deal with being shot at, being on fire, right? don't play with fire. Anyways, being on fire, landing in those situations. So how do we get the Ron Higgs that we're looking at right now? Because we have Wolf Management Solutions, right? Wolf Management Solutions, where you help. What exactly do you do with Wolf Management Solutions?
Right now, I'm doing executive coaching. So I help in executive coaching of individuals, teams, and I also do consulting and advisory work. So I have a few startups where I'm on the advisory board, but mostly I help with things that are not technical, things that are helping with other human beings, helping leaders or helping highly technical people become leaders. Moving from a mindset of a highly specialized mindset to a more of a generalist mindset and then the mindset of a leader. And I also work with teams. Sometimes, anybody here ever been a part of a dysfunctional team or a team that didn't work together? And as we all know, good companies with good people and good products and services still fail because of what? Because of leadership, right? People not getting along, conflict, those things like that. Those are the things I help with.
Okay. Who are you coaching? Who are you just coaching? People who are already executives? Are you coaching people who are getting ready to become executives? Are you coaching executive teams? Tell us a little bit more about that.
So coaching executive leadership teams, executive one-on-one, I don't refuse anyone, to tell you the truth, but I do look for people who are leading leaders. It's different from being a first line manager to being an executive and leading director level people and things like that.
What's the difference between being a first line manager and leading leaders? What's the difference?
You are leading, it's the difference between being a coach and being a head coach. Okay, so if you're a coach, you're coaching players on the field directly. If you're the head coach, you're actually coaching other coaches. You're finding other leaders and other coaches. And so coaching coaches is different from coaching players. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Okay, but I'm still a little confused. So if the skills that I needed as, let's say, as a first line leader, to now being a leader of leaders, what are the things that I as a leader of leaders need to focus on now versus what I had to focus on when I was just a first line leader?
As an individual contributor, do you mean focusing on coaching as a leader, you're dealing with an individual contributor and leading a team of individual contributors versus leading a team of other directors, if you're a COO, leading a team of directors or things like that, right? So you're helping other leaders you're helping them develop their leadership skills along with everything else.
Okay.
Not that you're not helping individual contributors become leaders too.
Okay.
Right? But your boss has to go to somebody if your boss is sort of running into issues and learning to be a better boss.
Okay, so how did you go from, because, you used to work at L3, right? You used to work at L3, used to work at Boeing. How did you go from those kinds of roles and system engineering and a manager role to now getting into executive coaching?
So I'll share with you the story fast forward in the military. After flying, I also did what we call program management and acquisition. So I worked with defense contractors on naval aviation programs and space programs. So I ran some classified military programs, which you're familiar with. And then the last job I did in the Navy, I was a spacecraft manager for a satellite system. And I sat on the launch console and gave the final spacecraft go before we launched it into space. All DoD, but that's the kind of work that I did in the Navy. When I got out, I sort of stayed in that whole thing, as you read. I worked for a consulting firm as a senior systems engineer, worked for L3, another defense contractor in business development and sales, and then I went to Boeing as flight crew and ultimately became a systems engineering director. Felt like I needed something more. right? I spent my entire life in the military or industrial complex in aerospace and defense, and I just wanted to do something different. So I found the startup world, got involved. That didn't work out so well. Did a few other things.
What about it didn't work out?
I was a principal in 4 startups, and they all failed. And they failed for different reasons. A lot of very good lessons learned in failed startups, but expensive, painful lessons too. So I was not the common denominator and all that. Just to let you know, maybe just some wrong. maybe I just chose poorly. But I dabbled around in that, but my involvement in angel investing and startups is what gave me the confidence that my skills from the aerospace and defense world were transferable. So fast forward, I was doing lots of different consulting. I was doing anything that I could. And just by pure luck and networking, I ended up becoming COO of a small company in the $5 to $10 million in annual revenue range. And I loved it. It's like, this is it. And what benefited me the most was my background in systems engineering. And I looked at the company as a system and all the departments of the company as a system and getting all those systems to work together. And it was great. And that was in January of 2020. I got laid off in April of 2020. So painful. So I started to be a fractional COO. So I retooled my business as a fractional COO business. So going out, finding people who needed someone in that position but didn't need someone in the position full time. And as a fractional COO, I found myself coaching the CEO and coaching the executive team. And I really liked it. So I'm still doing a little fractional COO work, but I'm sort of phasing out of that and moving into coaching full time because that's what I like to do the most.
Okay. It takes a lot of growth, one, in order to get the confidence to do your own venture, and also to switch up what you're doing. As you know, I switched up my career 3 times, right? From engineering, law, business, and now I'm in program management. So for you to have had kind of a similar path, what were some of the challenges in your growth, and what were some of the challenges in becoming a leader?
So there are a couple of things. Transitioning out of the military was tough, right? Because I went in 3 weeks out of high school at 17 years old. Okay, retired, 41 years old. Right, so coming out, so like, how do you interview for a job? Where do I go? Where do I want to live? Don't want to live in Camden, New Jersey. Right, so New Jersey, and I was lucky enough to have done a tour in Whidbey Island and found this state, and I was like, I really like it there. I think I'm going to move there. So here I am. So that transition was hard. And there was a lot of things in the military with, sort of all of us being focused on the same mission, inherent trust in people, and also, we talked a little bit about this, people in the military seek feedback. We get feedback on everything we do, lots of feedback. Some of it's not politically correct, but we're used to getting feedback. And so I found myself, giving feedback to people, and they're like, what's wrong with you, man? But I always looked at it as the people who care about me are going to give me feedback because they want me to be better. In the military, we're always training our replacements. You're not sticking in any job. Every assignment is 2, 3, 4 years. You are being trained to replace someone as you are training someone to replace you. Right, so you want that person to be the best that they can be, especially when you're flying next to them in an airplane and getting shot. Right, and so I just kind of assumed that mentality was present everywhere that I went, and it is not. And so that was a difficult transition for me. Another difficult transition again was, okay, I went to the defense contracting world, had a bunch of steady jobs, decided to leave Boeing, and go out on my own. First time in my entire life that I did not have a paycheck.
Talk to it, please. Because we're in a room full of entrepreneurs, right? We're in a room full of entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs. Speak to that, because I think that's, as entrepreneurs, you're always trying to figure it out. Am I right?
You're right.
Always trying to figure out. Always trying to grow. Trying not to beat up on yourself for making mistakes. I don't know, man. I might be the only person that's to me. Can you speak to that? Can you speak to that? Especially coming from the military, where if you fail, it's lives on the line.
I had to learn not to beat myself up about these things. One of the things when I quit my first job, it took me a while to come to that decision because I was never able to quit before. And so I wasn't happy. And I even went to the management, leadership, and went, hey, this is kind of what I'd really like to do and what I see myself doing. Is there a path to do that? And they're like, oh yeah, definitely. So 2 years down the road, they're still telling me, oh yeah, definitely. I'm like, yeah, no. So I'm out. But I'm like, wait, I can quit. But no, didn't have that option. Never had that option before. So I just went to him and said, hey, not working for me. I'm out, right? So it was, I was a little bit more politically correct than that. But that was really difficult to do.
Go ahead.
But I will say this, as a retired military guy, I have a pension, right? It's not a lot, but it's more than zero. I don't have any children, and at the time I didn't have a family to support, right? So I'm not sure that the impact to me would be the same as everybody else. Because I don't know if I would have made a decision if I was supporting a family. I don't know. I'd like to say I would, but I don't know.
I can understand that. So, when you go from being part of a team to now running your own thing, right? Being part of a team to having to create a team, and hopefully that you're able to build a team, right? How do you vet people? And then how do you build your systems so that you can move from working in your business to working on your business?
There's a lot there, but let's say first let me think about this for a second.
I got him with the first
Well, let's talk about working on your business first, working on your business, and how you vet people. How do you vet people? How do you create relationships? How do you cultivate relationships? Because I'll tell you right now, as far as relationship goes, I think that as an entrepreneur, your ability to create relationships is one of the most important things that you can develop, right? You're going and asking for money, right? Who was the guy that was here last month, right? Yeah, he said if you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. That was powerful, right? But so which one would you do? How do you start a relationship? How do you cultivate a relationship? Because you have to create some kind of relationship with someone who you expect to write you a big check, right?
Yeah.
And again, as a leader in a leadership position, even no matter what kind of position it is, your ability to create relationships with the people on your team and the people around you is what's going to help you thrive. So I think that your ability to create relationships is good. Now, vetting people, I'm not sure I use that word, but a lot of it just has to be gut, right? I will say in the military, if there are any other veterans in here, you might know. As a veteran, we just have this inherent trust in others. Military officers. If I have a conversation with a military officer, former military officer, I walk away from that conversation 100% confident that whatever that person said they would do, they're going to do.
It's not like that in civilian.
And I made that mistake because I thought people were like that, and I got burned a lot of times during my first couple of years out of the military, and assuming that everybody thought that way, right? But you have to go with your gut feel as far as people go, right? The other thing is find people who are not like you, right? So anybody know what a visionary is? Right? Visionaries, all the ideas, innovative, 30,000 feet all the time, a million ideas. If you're a visionary and you go get another visionary to get a company off the ground, what's going to happen?
Be 60,000 feet in the air.
Right? Yeah, so 100% right. And to oversimplify this a little bit, there's thinkers and doers, right? There's people that go out and do stuff, people that think and overthink about stuff, right? If you're a doer, are you going to get but those two kinds of people need each other. Right, and they push each other, right? Because the doer is going to be like, hey, we can't sit here thinking about this all the time, right? And the thinker is going to be, hey, we should aim before we fire, right? And so you need people that are not exactly like you. So if anybody, there's a million assessments out there, yourself, just don't get the same person like you and don't have a room full of people who all think the same.
Yeah, the civilian world is a lot different than the military world, man. A lot different. That was something that I had to learn. I worked for the military, so there's a certain level of kind of decorum and culture that you have being exposed to the military. And then when I left the Navy for law school, that was a major transition for me. Here it is I'm going from this is the answer, this is what it is, to, well, it depends. Right? I go from an environment, but at the same time, I went from an environment where at any given moment, I can get chewed out by the old man, the captain of the ship, if I didn't do my job. And that would be the last time I'd ever ride that ship ever again. To now, I'm in class and my classmates are worried about the teacher calling on them. What? You're worried that the teacher is going to call on you and you might feel unprepared? Please call on me. So that way you don't have to call me ever again. So those experiences that you had in the Navy have now prepared you for dealing with hard situations, challenging situations, and it just seems like you just went after it. You just went after it to go after it, which is going to bring me back to your military career. I don't want to gloss over the fact that you went to test pilot school. What was your goal in going to test pilot school?
You know the answer to this. I wanted to be an astronaut, as we said before. And the path to be an astronaut in the Navy, naval aviation, become a test pilot, apply to NASA. So that's what I did. So luckily, I did well enough throughout in my flying in my squadron, academically and so forth, applied to test pilot school. That's not like you just don't get to go. You have to apply, very competitive, and I was lucky enough to have been selected and to get selected. I did that. That was a year-long program, very intense program. It's one of those things that's not under sure. Test pilot, very cool, right? Sounds cool, right? And it's almost like being a crash test dummy. Like we go and do things in airplanes that have never been done before. It's like, hey, you're going to go do this. It's like, we're going to go do what? In this airplane, and then you have to come back and write about it. It's like, wait a minute, what? Right? So you go out and do something cool, or maybe something not so cool, because I did some things that's like, this is, wake me up when this is over. and come back, and then I had to write like a 14-page report about it. So a lot of the time in test pilot school was spent learning how to write technical reports. And the thing is, you could be great, and you could be a great flight test person, test pilot, or test flight officer, and come back, but if you cannot convey what you saw to everyone else to read it, then not really worth much. So it's those things that you don't think about you have to do, and no movie ever shows how much work it is in flying. Like, we do not play games of volleyball, high-five each other, go to the bar, and come back and do it again. There is always a lot of work to be done.
I don't get to ring the bell.
No. So I once you meet the requirements for NASA, so I went through the application for astronaut. I did it, and what we do with the Navy is we had to send our astronaut applications to the Navy. And the Navy decides who the astronaut candidates are going to be and which ones they send down to NASA. And I was lucky enough to be an astronaut candidate. Okay, wow, okay, astronaut candidate. Now, hey, little kid watching Star Trek and watching people working on the moon from Camden, New Jersey, now sitting up here with, hey, I am an astronaut candidate. This might happen. And got to NASA, and I got medically disqualified from NASA. Close as I could, not disappointing. Look at where I am, right? So people will say, anybody ever heard the term, the sky's the limit? Yeah. All right, well, that's bullshit. So sorry. It is, right? Because the sky is not the limit, right? If you get past the sky, what happens, right? So it opens up, right? The rest of the universe is there. So it's the beginning of an endless journey if you make it through the sky. So I got as far as I could, and I'm not disappointed at all about that.
Let's give it up. Well, you know,
Sorry for the sailor language.
it's all good. It's all good. Well, you know, Victor Glover. If Victor Glover were sitting here right now, I know he'd be like, yeah. If I was in that show, if I was making the decision, you'd be up there. So yeah. For those that don't know, Victor Glover is one of the astronauts that went up to the space station on the SpaceX first manned mission to the International Space Station. He is also a graduate of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I only know this because he wrote me a letter of recommendation when I was trying to become a pilot. I only know this, that's why. But I'm going to take us back now to your experiences with Wolf Management, and then we're going to close it up and open it up for the audience. So we've talked about feedback and planning, which is something that we all need in our businesses as entrepreneurs. And I take it that whenever you took off on your plane, that there was always a plan involved, right? So as entrepreneurs, it's very important for us to have an idea, a plan of where it is that we want to go. Now, that when it comes time to executing it, might have a little trouble, might have some setbacks, might have some changes, but at least we went in there with a particular plan and a commitment to landing the plane. That be correct?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Now.
Can I add to that, though?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, what we're talking about here is every flight, we just don't, again, flights have purposes, right? You go up and you do something and you come back, right? And every flight has a flight plan. So you plan a flight, you execute it, and then you debrief it. But you got to have a plan, right? And you got to know the mission and what you're doing. Because if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there, right? So really important to know where you're going. And the mission, here's the one thing that the military did really well, is everybody knows the mission, right? Support and defend the Constitution of the United States. We raised our hand to do that, take an oath. Military does a good job in letting us all know where we fit in that whole thing so that we could map what we're doing every day to how it contributed to that mission. And what I took with me to help companies with mission statements and things like that with people in alignment is that everyone, every day, everything that everybody does in your company, they should be able to see how it contributes to your mission. They should be able to map their actions and what they're doing every day to the mission of the company. And if they're not, think about it.
Sounds like if you haven't communicated the vision, right, write the vision down, make it plain, then how is it that people who are supposed to be helping you contribute to that mission, how can they have a sense of importance, a sense of purpose, and a sense of mission? So as a leader, it seems like your job is opening up that aperture so that, one, you as the leader, you can't be the specialist. That's why you have a team. You now have to go to being the generalist and the vision setter. Okay. My last question before I open it up to the audience is, what else are you passionate about?
Learning. I am, every time I take some kind of assessment, curious is at the top. But really, I love to learn about stuff. I mean, just learn stuff that I don't know. It's like, I don't know anything about that. Let me go check it out. And I told Jamar this story earlier. So I was in a brewery, and I was sitting next to a guy, and we just started chatting. And I'm like, what do you do? He goes, and this is in Woodinville. He's like, I own one of the wineries across the street. I'm like, really? It's like, I don't know that much about wine. I was like, how do you staff your tasting room? He goes, I use volunteers. I was like, you need volunteers? He says, yeah. He says, all I want to do is learn. Just teach me whatever you want. I'll help you sling wine in the tasting room, which it's not a bad deal, okay? So what do you do, Ron? What kind of volunteer work do you do? It's like, well, I work in a tasting room in a winery. But I learned so much about wine and how it's produced in the local wine industry and anything. I ended up working in that guy's tasting room for 7 years. Right, and so that's where wanting to learn got me, and I had a great time doing it.
As a volunteer?
Yes.
Sipping as a volunteer, ain't that?
I did get a couple bottles of wine after every
Drinking
ship.
on the job.
Well, after the job was over, not on the job.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the. Do you have any final words for our audience before we open it up for questions? You know what? I'll let you give the final words after the
All right.
audience to ask
Fair
some
enough.
questions. Go ahead.
You hear me from back here, we got the mic.
Yep.
Hello, I am just inspired with your story, like just all in all. There's a lot that I have in common with you, and I'm sure I'm just gonna grab you as soon as it's over and talk to you, so.
Deal.
For that. One of the things that you mentioned was like supporting like others, like, right? You kind of love that, like going to your first role and seeing that you really liked coaching and kind of supporting and teaching and learning yourself. How do you really do that? Like, let's say you go and you're out in the community and you're asking for support from someone else and they don't really want to give you that support back. Like, right, how do you handle that? Because I know you were talking about vetting and stuff like that. So let's say you're out and you're like, hey, I want to support your business, but you don't see that coming back your way. How do you handle that?
Well, I guess I never go into it with the attitude that I'm going to get something back, right? It's like, I'm here to help. So what I do with my business, I end up probably 3 to 4 out of every 5 conversations I have, I end up referring out to other people because what I focus on is helping them solve their problem. And I built a large network of peers, and if I know someone that's in a better position to solve their problem, I will refer them to that person. So the idea is I just want to help them, right? Whether or not they help me or support me, I guess that's not it. And if you are looking for somebody's help, I guess I would be straight, hey, I would like your help in X. But I don't go into any of those engagements expecting anything back from people. And I think I heard somebody say, like, if you're focused on helping people, you'll never go broke. I don't know who said that. I can't take credit for it, but I heard it and I liked it.
Any other questions?
Hi, Ron. I have to ask you to continue that story that you started earlier.
Which one?
The one about your uncle.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
I gotta give you daps, somebody. Yeah, he had. I was sitting over there, gotta keep up with him. Thank you.
Right. So in flight school in Pensacola, Florida, one of our phases was airways navigation, right? And so just flying from point A to point B in the aerospace structure and just learning how this all goes. And so my family, my mom's side of the family, that uncle is from Columbus, Ohio, right? And so I knew the day I go in for this flight, it's like, okay, I got an airways navigation flight. We had to fly for like 3 or 4 hours. 2 students, 1 student, and this, I think it was a Cessna Citation we had. So we would fly it from, point A to point. 1 student would fly there, the other student would fly back from Pensacola, Florida. So the flight instructor comes in that day and says, hey, where we going, sir? He's like, we're going to Columbus, Ohio. I'm like, what? Excuse me, where? He said, Columbus, Ohio. I'm like, I'll be right back. I called my grandmother. I go, Grandma, I'm flying to Columbus today to here. Can you come and see me? She goes, oh, Ronnie, I can't, but Uncle Azel can come. I'll call him. And Uncle Azel was the one that sat me down and told me that, right? So Uncle Azel came to meet us at the airport, and we went someplace in Columbus. It was Rickenbacker Air National Guard base at the time. I don't think it's there anymore. And ironically, that I was born on that base. It was called Lockbourne Air Force Base at the time, and it was, think about this, it was the last of the segregated military bases, right? So, one of the last of them. So, landed there, went to the 94th Aero Squadron restaurant. My uncle was there, took him back, showed him the airplane and everything like that. And he was the star of the family because he got to go and tell everybody that, hey, I got to see Ronnie when he flew in. He was wearing his flight suit and he took me to see the airplane and all that stuff. He could not have been more excited. Now, at that point in his life, I'm not sure he remembered having that conversation with me, so I did not bring it up, right? But he was proud, right? Because remember, those people, my uncle, he grew up in the era of not being able to vote, back of the bus, I mean, full-on segregation, that kind of stuff. So he had every reason to be angry, and he wasn't. Which is good.
Hey, can I ask a question? How many of you in the room have kids between the age of 11 and graduating high school? Just 2 of you? Okay. Ron, my son Jake, as you know, was in the Sea Cadets. Tomorrow he's running a 100-mile marathon.
Wow.
All those marches down the Coast Guard base in all over, had great influence on him. You're on the board of the Sea Cadets. Can you please share a little bit about it?
A lot of things just roll up into luck, right? So I will say I am passionate about the library system because, again, you heard my story earlier about the library system. And I was lucky enough to be able to serve the library system here. So I was on the library advisory board for the city of Bellevue when I lived there. And I ended up spending 5 years on the King County Library Board. And in 2021, I was the chair. And I was very, very happy to be able to give back to that system. A couple of years ago, I found out that one of my classmates from the Naval Academy, who is an admiral, who is a retired admiral, is the executive director of the U.S. Naval Sea Cadets. He and I crossed paths, and he said, and I asked him what he was doing. He says, I'm the executive director of Sea Cadets. I was like, wow, I was a Sea Cadet. He's like, well, I did not know that. So we had a long conversation, or a short conversation. Fast forward about a year later, he calls me and asks me if I would like to be on the board of the Sea Cadets. I'm like, hell yeah, I want to be on the board of the Sea Cadets. So how lucky am I to have been able to serve the 2 institutions or the 2 organizations that to me are responsible for where I'm sitting right now, the library system and the Sea Cadets. If it wasn't for those 2 things, I would have me and my brother both would have been Camden, New Jersey statistics.
Can you share a little bit about what that does for kids?
Well, it is a youth development program akin to the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, other things, but it is sponsored by the Navy and it focuses on the maritime services. But it teaches kids teamwork, skills. We have them out there flying drones. They get to go out on Navy ships. They get to go to Navy boot camp. There's a hierarchical structure. They get to learn everything. There's a Sea Cadet equivalent of an Eagle Scout, which is called a Chief. And it really, if you can do some research on it and look at some of the parents saying that they just don't recognize their kids after being involved in this program. And the thing is, it's a pretty well-kept secret. One of the problems we have now is branding, marketing, right? And it's available all over the country. And I think we have, Sea Cadets in Indiana. That's not a coastal state, but still, people from the Navy, people join the Navy from there.
For anyone local, go to blueangelsquadron.com. That's the local of the 400.
Yeah, they do a couple of trainings every year. Again, so here we send them, they can go up to Whidbey and sort of train with the squadron. They can go over to Bremerton and mess around on a ship, or submarine and things like that. They really get to do some cool stuff. When I was a Sea Cadet, got to go to Navy boot camp when I think I was 13 or 14 years old, which was quite an experience. Dressed us up in fire gear and let us put out fires. Went on a Navy destroyer to Bermuda and back. Flew in a helicopter for the first time. Just got to do some great things. Learned a little bit about leadership and teamwork beyond the stuff we learn as being part of sports teams.
It's a life-changing organization.
It was for me.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I'll just leave you with this. So the learning thing, I would just take every opportunity you can to learn about anything and be open to learning from anyone. Anyone. You can learn something from any and everyone. I learn from people whom I coach. I've never gone into an engagement, never been a part of a team where I didn't learn something from anyone. Now, and we also like to complain about sort of the bad situations that we're in. Learn from those. In the military, I had some horrible experiences in the military. One of the worst commanding officers I've ever had, right? That guy lives today as a bad example in my head. I learned so much from that guy because I learned kind of like what not to do, right? I will do that. What would this guy do? I will do the opposite. So, at least that person was good enough to serve as a bad example for you. So anything, right? Anything, just take as many opportunities as you can to learn, especially from people who are walking in places that you want to go.
Let's give it up for Mr. Ron Higgs, our very own Top Gun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Couple things.
Let me grab
Like I say, you gotta be here for Top Gun for Startups, where Ron and another F-18 test pilot, TJDL, and I, have been flying for 40 years, give a course on what we learned about entrepreneurship from our flight instructors. That tape recording you develop in your head, where am I going, how am I going to get there, that situational awareness.